Thanks for joining us today for NCPDP's Virtual Product Showcase. My name is Dave Mammen. I'm an account executive for NCPDP. My colleague and I, Mia Ricky, work in the database products group, and we are your point of contact for any information related to those products. We're also happy to serve as your first point of contact for anything really related to NCPDP. We're glad to point you to the right resources or the right people. For those of you who are perhaps not aware, NCPDP is an ANSI-affiliated standards development organization. And what that means is that we spend most of our time and effort working together with our members to solve problems in exchanging data with one another, primarily in the pharmacy space. Thanks to that good work by our members, we have a very long history and a very solid reputation. We're well regarded in the industry for standards like the script e-prescription standard, the manufacturer's rebate standard, and the standard for batch transmission of universal claim forms. We have some 12 or 13 work groups devoted to standards efforts, but those are some of the best known ones. And again, thanks to that good work by our members and our organization, our work has been recognized and referenced in government regulations and policies like HIPAA and MMA. We try to keep some basic principles in mind when we create and deliver these database products and services. We bring together the data that you need to do your work and to do it successfully. We look for opportunities in workflows to help improve efficiency and effectiveness by giving you cost-effective, high-quality access to the data that you need. Using that data and the kind of information and documentation that's provided with it, you can check compliance by your pharmacy business partners with federal and state regulations and mandates. And that information is available to you to validate and verify the credentials of healthcare providers, whether they are pharmacies or prescribers. In the case of the resQ product that we're looking at today, it'll all be pharmacy information and pharmacy credentials. HCIDEA is the product that you would look to for prescriber information. We have a suite of 5 products. As I mentioned, I'll be speaking in this session about the resQ pharmacy credentialing platform. resQ is inclusive of the DataQ data, so all of the profiles for 80,000 pharmacies come with your resQ subscription. But resQ focuses more on the credentials, on some information that CMS requires that pharmacies have on hand and report to their business partners, as well as some supporting documentation. Mia Ricky will be doing the presentation on HCIDEA, our prescriber database, later in the day today. And RxRecon and Standards Table Data are 2 additional products that we offer. RxRecon is a healthcare legislation tracking tool, and Standards Table Data is a machine-readable download of the data elements that go along with each of our standards. For more information about those, there are product showcases available for those products as well today, and I'll speak a bit more of that at the end of the presentation. Subscribers and members turn to us for a variety of reasons for pharmacy data. There's a wide variety of uses for this data. For many, they're just looking for the information that they need for sales and marketing outreach or business contacts. Who are these pharmacies and where are they? Some of them are using that information to publish an online pharmacy directory, such as you'd find on the net if you look up and see where's the nearest pharmacy to my house. The primary use for something like resQ, where it includes the pharmacy credentials, is in onboarding pharmacies into a pharmacy network. PBMs would do that, or their PSAOs. It might be also in validating credentials for pharmacies. CMS and other agencies require that Medicare and Medicaid providers be revalidated each year. And that means that somebody has to do an audit, and I'll speak a little bit later about how you go about doing that or why resQ is a help for it. For some of our members, they're looking for very detailed information about the pharmacies, either ownership history information, change of ownership, chain codes for the pharmacies, or examples of the kind of business detail that you won't find in any other online data source for pharmacy information. Some of our PBMs and PSAOs have started working with the API interface to resQ. They're doing things like building out pharmacy profiles, pharmacy portals, and in so doing, they're trying to work with or trying to cope with the fact that they may have tens of thousands of pharmacy users now logging into their system. What the API and the single sign-on option that comes with it do for you is take you out of the business of having to authorize, verify, and support all of those users. They can use their NCPDP sign-on in those application situations. The information that's included in resQ gives you all the documentation and all of the detail that you need for monitoring compliance with regulations and mandates, for checking to make sure a pharmacy is who they say they are and that they are authorized to do what they say they want to do. So all of that fraud checking, all of that management of fraud, waste, and abuse, that is such an important topic for all of us across the industry. resQ is an ideal source for the data you need to do that. And lastly, we see a growing use of both the DataQ and resQ data as a way to track trends in the pharmacy market. How many pharmacies are there in operation today? How many of a particular kind of pharmacy are there? Like how many long-term care pharmacies are there in Arizona or in New Mexico? So if you're trying to track trends like how many pharmacies opened this quarter, how many pharmacies closed this quarter, or any of the other details that are included in the resQ database, you're able to do so. So the pharmacy credentialing challenge, which is really what resQ was designed for, is a very complex one, and it grows more and more complex each day. And it exists really in two dimensions. What we see is pharmacies who are staffed by very busy people and not oriented around necessarily keeping records are having to report all of this information. And they're having to report, especially in the case of the independent pharmacies, having to report data to players like PSAOs and PBMs, and they may be doing business with as many as 30 or 40 different PBMs. So pity the pharmacy owner over here trying to record documents and file information and send that information off in different data formats to as many as 30 or 40 sources. Similarly, the people on this side of the equation, PBMs and PSAOs, if they're regional, are dealing with 2,000 or 3,000 pharmacies, but if they're nationwide, maybe dealing with as many as 80,000, the entire complement of pharmacies in the US. So all of this data in all of these different formats and all different systems are being shared back and forth between these two groups. Now, I've been out to visit PSAO and PBM offices, and I've seen stacks of paper 2 and 3 feet high. And I've heard the stories about delays of 2 to 3 months in onboarding new pharmacies. I get that, but the example, I guess, that comes to mind for me is myself at tax time. I do my own taxes, and some of my charitable donation receipts are in my email. Some are in my wife's email. Some are in paper form on my kitchen counter. I've got vehicle registration and information out in the glove box in my car. And at tax time, I'm bringing together stacks of paper and fiddling around with them, and they're all over my my couch as I do my taxes. Think of that where a pharmacy is doing that work in the middle of filling prescriptions and the like, and they're sending it out in different formats to 30 or 40 different entities. Think of that where the 30 or 40 different entities are dealing with thousands or 10,000s of pharmacies. That's the problem we've tried to solve with resQ, where we give a single safe source for all of this data. It's entered by the pharmacies in a way that's familiar to them. Every pharmacy has to have an NCPD profile record. They're part one of their profile as it exists in DataQ. We gave them a very easy way to take that profile and expand it to include the resQ information, part two of the profile. And we'll take a close look in a few minutes with the query tool to give you a look at what that's like. I mentioned that DataQ is included in resQ. That means the 200 data elements for each of the 80,000 pharmacies is included in the resQ distribution. resQ adds some 400 additional data files, data elements. Where those data elements come from is that they are typically being populated by independent pharmacies. There's 29,000 or so independent pharmacies. What we see is almost 100% of the independent pharmacies have embraced this idea of storing their profile information in resQ. And what that information consists of is some of the CMS requirements like ownership history and control information, the licensing of their pharmacist in charge, and any additional state licenses they have besides the primary one that was reported in DataQ. We have their insurance policy information and copies of the insurance policies, general and professional liability insurance. We have all the supporting documents for compliance, and that can be up to 24 documents for an individual pharmacy. So one of the things that helps with that audit situation I was describing, which becomes a fire drill. Everybody's running around trying to get all of the current information on the 15 or 20 pharmacies in a network that are being audited at the time. What Batch Document Download does is it gives you a way to easily download the documents, the full set of documents for up to 50 pharmacies all at once. So if you have an audit, you name the pharmacies that you're looking for, you get all the compliance documentation, and you get it all loaded down, where it's easy for you then to share that with the requesting government agency or the business entity that you need to report that data back to. Why do our members and subscribers come to NCPDP for data like this? First, as I mentioned with DataQ, it's the only place that you'll see NCPDP number and some of that detailed business information, like chain codes and change of ownership and relationships and the like. They also turn to NCPDP because we are a not-for-profit member-based organization. Our members sit on our board, and that means that they know that we look at the needs of all of our memberships, all of the industry stakeholders, and those guide our product development process and our service options and activity. We have a strong reputation for accurate and up-to-date information. The pharmacy information is all input by the pharmacies. And again, they're very highly motivated to keep that data accurate and up to date. If they don't do so, they risk paid, not getting their rebates, or at least not getting those things processed in a timely manner. They own their own profile records. They fill them out and manage them. They attest to the quality of that information and the accuracy of that information at least every year. resQ has triggers built into it to notify them of when their documents are coming up for renewal. And we do a little bit of checking on those documents to make sure it's the right document for the right store with the right address and the right expiration date. So we're doing a little bit of quality control on the data as well. Members tell me that they appreciate that there is flexibility in how they get data. In the case of resQ, there are two options. There's monthly and API for near real-time access. And you can get resQ data files either on a monthly basis, a monthly refresh of the master file, or a monthly refresh of the transaction file. If you want to maintain your own copy of the master database and then adjust or update it based on transactions, you can do so. Let's switch now to a demonstration of the resQ database. Let's take a change of pace here and take a look at the contents of the resQ database, just to give you some examples. I mentioned the identifiers that are included in a resQ profile. These are actually identifiers from the DataQ portion. Once again, DataQ is included in resQ. So if you know the NCPDP number or the federal tax ID for a pharmacy, you can look it up that way. The more common way that people are going to access this data, I think, are they're looking for independent pharmacies. Again, you want to think of resQ as primarily a platform of information for independent pharmacies. They're the ones that are the hardest to get in touch with to get all of this Part 2 or profile information. So independent pharmacies in Alabama, and I pull those up, you'll see there are 733 of those independent pharmacies in Alabama alone. And if I click on one of those, I get its entire profile record. These tabs relate to the table files that the data is coming from. Again, reminding you that DataQ comes with resQ. So all of the Part 1 is the DataQ profile, the 200 data elements in the 13 data files that come as part of the DataQ distribution. resQ adds an additional 18 data files, some 400 additional table elements, and all of the resQ fields you'll see under the Part 2 tab. So with resQ, in addition to the DataQ information, you get things like the additional pharmacy details. You can find out how many pharmacists and technicians there are. The pharmacy has the option of listing their software vendor name, their pharmacy management system software name, their data switch vendor name. They'll also record when they were fully credentialed and when their record was last updated. You can see they're staying pretty current with update of this data. I mentioned that CMS and other government agencies have some requirements around health plans for the kind of data that they must maintain for Medicare and Medicaid pharmacies. Among the information that's required is detail about the ownership and control of those pharmacies. So whether the owner is a licensed pharmacist, all of these details, their convictions or violations, exclusions, all of that sort of detail must be reported back to CMS, and resQ becomes a vehicle. The Part 2 of their profile becomes a vehicle by which they can report that information. In addition to ownership history, we have some detail on the individual owners. So we would see the owner's name and title, the percentage of ownership they have, if they are in fact a pharmacy and have a pharmacist license. Any other pharmacies that they owned would be listed here. Where there are multiple owners, in this tab you would see relationships between owners. So Sammy, you'll remember, owned 100% of the pharmacy. If he or she shared information, shared ownership with other pharmacists or other owners, then the relationship between the owners would be listed here. So if they were siblings, or if they were spouses, or if they shared directors between the organizations, any relationships between owners would be reported here, along with other pharmacies owned. In this particular instance, there are none, but this resQ gives you a good way to track pharmacies that are operating together in collaboration or as some kind of a business unit. We have general liability and professional liability details, as well as the documents themselves. If we click on one of those highlights, we can actually pull up the insurance policy and check the dates for ourselves. We again are sending out triggers to let people know that their licenses or information is expiring, and to encourage them to keep up to date. And our contact center works with people to help them do that sort of work and keep their records current. For the pharmacist in charge, we have their detailed information along with a copy of their license. These live licenses, by the way, live copies of the licenses, are available to you via Web Connect, via this kind of add-on tool. They are not included in the delivery of the files that you get by subscription. So you'll need Web Connect, which is included with resQ, but is an optional add-on with the DataQ product. We have licenses and certifications, so that's additional state licenses that are available for each of the pharmacies. We have details about any sanctions and inclusions, including their recent inspection report. Again, just like any other document with Web Connect Plus, you can click on those live links and see the document for yourself. Practice settings gives you a sense of the amount of business of each type that a pharmacy does. Each pharmacy, using Washington publishing codes, can specify both their dispenser class as a pharmacy and up to 3 pharmacy types or taxonomies. Those 3 taxonomies would be reported here and the percentage of business done in each one. So it's fairly common to see maybe 10 or 20% of a pharmacy's business is discrete medical equipment if they happen to do that sort of business as well. Where DataQ will tell you whether a pharmacy does immunizations, yes or no, resQ lists the specific immunizations that they provide. And this kind of information becomes increasingly important as pharmacies start to take part in collaborative services with prescribers and with doctors and expand those services. Similarly, in clinical services, where DataQ will tell you yes or no, a pharmacy does provide clinical services, resQ gives them the opportunity to record which ones they do. And again, same importance, that as pharmacies begin to be involved in collaborative services, as they begin to bill for clinical services, the detail of which services they're providing needs to be recorded, and the best place to do that is in their pharmacy profile, where it's easy to do so and it's easy for everyone to find. Lastly, where DataQ tells you whether a pharmacy is a compounding pharmacy or not, resQ would include its compounding policies and procedures. And this really illustrates the difference, or one of the differences, between DataQ and resQ. DataQ is very basic profile information. It's pretty comprehensive, but it's the basic information. For the more granular level of detail, and for the documents that support and expand on the reporting of that data, you want resQ. For any entity like a PBM or a PSAO who onboards pharmacies or who revalidates pharmacy credentials each year to meet CMS mandates and requirements, resQ is an indispensable tool. That concludes the demonstration of the resQ product. Thanks for your time and for listening today. I'd like to speak just a bit about other information that's available to you in our product showcase today. In our virtual product showcase today, we've got a variety of rooms for you to visit. I mentioned that there's a live presentation of HC Idea later today. If you missed parts of my presentation or want to review it, if because I mentioned DataQ so much, you want to go back and get the detail on what's included in DataQ, all of those presentations are being recorded and are available in the showrooms as you go and visit them. RxRecon and Standards Table Data all have a showroom. And every time you go to one of these showrooms, you're getting an entry into the drawing for the 3 $100 Amazon gift cards. We're missing the chance to do live trade shows and give out trinkets and those kind of things. We can at least give you a chance to go buy your own trinkets with the Amazon gift cards. So do go and visit, find out about the other products that we offer, get your name registered into that drawing. Thanks so much for your time. We know that there are a lot of things that compete for your attention on any day, and we appreciate you spending time with us today. Thanks and have a great day. Here's contact information for myself and my colleague, Mia Ricky. Again, glad to hear from you, glad to help in any way that we can, and I'll be available for the next few minutes for any questions that you might have. Thanks again for joining us.